Peter. Zorik.
Well, happy Easter, everyone. Hey, I'm Gerald, and I'm one of the pastors here at Hope, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we get to worship together today. And so thank you for joining us online. You know, there's this rich ancient element that's been part of the Easter celebration for literally thousands of years. It's where one person will say, "He is risen," and then the response is, "He is risen indeed." And I want us to get to do that together this morning. And so I'm going to say, "He is risen," and I want you to reply, "He is risen indeed," with all of the energy and excitement as if you just discovered for the first time that Jesus was alive after the resurrection. So here we go. You ready? He is risen. All right, way to go. Hey, we're excited. And, Kevin Foley is our pastor to our kids. And so, Kevin, are there some things that maybe our families need to know about what's going on for kids right now?
Thanks, Gerald. There sure are. First off, happy Easter, Hope family. If you're a parent, a grandparent, or you have any kid in any area of your life, we want you to know that Hope Kids has some great resources for you, both today and in the future. First is our Easter family service, which we are calling Easter Jam. Easter Jam is an at-home Easter experience made for the whole entire family. You can find it on the Hope Palm Desert YouTube channel. Also, for many more resources in the weeks to follow, we want you to follow us on our Facebook page at Hope Kids at Hope Lutheran and Instagram at Hope Kids Palm Desert. We look forward to partnering with you. Gerald, what else do we need to know about for today's service?
Wow, well, thanks so much, Kevin. That's some really great stuff to get to hear how our kids ministry is rolling along even right now in the circumstances that we're all under. Another part of worship is always giving back to God out of what God has given to us. And so I'm going to invite you sometime during the service or later today to make your donation. We have 3 ways that you can do that. One is you can text your gift to 84321, or you can go online to hopepd.org and make your donation there. Or of course, as always, you could mail your gift to Hope Lutheran Church, 45900 Portola Avenue, Palm Desert, California. You know, we're going to be celebrating communion a little later in the service, and so I'm going to invite you during this song that we're about to sing together to get prepared for that. So go ahead, find yourself a piece of bread or maybe a cracker and some wine or some juice, and that way when it comes time to celebrate communion together, we'll all be prepared and be ready to do that. And now, would you sing along and enjoy this first song?
all week long here in Southern California, it's been either gray, dark days or rainy. But not this Easter weekend. I mean, it's beautiful outside. The sun broke through and it's sunny and warm. Unless you're in Minnesota, it's snowing. Hi, my name is Rick, and I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Hope. And today is an historical moment because the world has never been restricted from celebrating Easter in large gatherings. I mean, millions of people around the world would get all dressed up, go to church as families, and have Easter egg hunts and sing and connect and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, God's Savior for the world. Well, we might be restricted to our homes, but it doesn't mean we're restricted from worshiping Jesus. This is going to be a little bit different than we're used to, but have you ever had to change something in your life that actually turned out to be a good thing? Sometimes being forced out of our normal habits can cause us to see things differently, even better than before. Now, did you know that the first Easter Sunday, a group of Jesus followers were self-quarantined at home, and they thought Jesus had been permanently entombed? The news of the resurrection was celebrated in a house, not in a church building. There was no dressing up, masses of people gathering and singing, just a few people in a home like you are now. Well, today is historical because we're experiencing what the first Easter must have felt like. And this is definitely historical for me as a pastor as well, because I've never spoke at an Easter service in my pajamas. Now, I know that I look dressed up, but you just can't see the rest of me. And I'm thinking, maybe this preaching in PJs might just catch on. Well, today we're starting a brand new series called Can You See Him? And in the next few weeks, we're going to look at different stories from the Bible that will help us see God at work in our everyday lives. Today, we're looking at a section from the New Testament in the Bible about Jesus. He had taught for 3 years up to this point, died on a Friday, and his body had been put in a tomb. And the disciples, like everyone else, and maybe like you, thought dead people stayed dead. But early on that Sunday morning, some of the women who followed Jesus were going to the tomb to pay their respects, and they discovered something they had never expected. It frankly freaked them out, and they ran back to the home to tell the others. So this is where we enter the story. In Luke chapter 24, verse 13, it says, that same day, 2 of them, talking about the disciples at this point, were walking to the village Emmaus. Now, why were they going there? Well, they were going there because they were scared, they were dejected, they were disappointed, lost hope. I mean, they were going back to their homes. It says about 7 miles out of Jerusalem. And they were deep in conversation, going over all these things that had happened in the middle of their conversation, in the middle of their questions. Jesus came up and walked along with them, but they were not able to recognize who he was. Now, I don't know about you, but that would freak me out a little bit, to be walking along and all of a sudden a dead friend starts walking with us. But it says that they didn't recognize him. Why didn't they recognize him? Now, we don't know why that they couldn't recognize him. One possible answer could be is that the resurrection appearance of Jesus required a new level of faith. But whatever the reason, God wasn't allowing them to recognize him. He was walking with them, but they didn't have eyes to see. Now, that ever happened to you? Where you're looking at something that's so close, right in front of you, but you can't see it? I was at an Apple store pre-corona, and I was waiting to be helped, and I watched as customers were asking Apple associates questions about how to use their phones and computers. And they'd say, I can't figure this out. And the associate would click a button on their device, and the customer would respond, oh man, it's right in front of my eyes. I didn't see that. We can have the answers right in front of us, and yet we can't see it. It's there, but we just can't see it. I've seen couples in counseling say, my spouse just doesn't see what I'm talking about. It's right in front of their noses. Or you can tell your kids to go and clean up their bedroom, and when you go to check on them to see how they're doing, nothing's been done. And you ask, I thought I told you to pick up your room. To their response, I did. And you say, well, what about these socks? And what about these clothes and the dirty dishes and the nasty banana peel? To their response, I didn't see that. See, in our story, they can't see him. They didn't recognize him. So Jesus jumps into their conversation in verse 17 and says, what's this you're discussing so intently as you walk along? Now, they stood there, long-faced, it says, like they had lost their best friend. Then one of them, his name was Cleopas, said, are you the only one in Jerusalem who hasn't heard what's happening during the last few days? Have you ever been talking to someone and you could tell that they're clueless? Now, be polite. Don't point to someone in your house. That wouldn't be nice, right? Well, they're thinking, don't you watch the news? I mean, have you been living in a cave somewhere? Well, actually, yeah, for the last 3 days. These guys were feeling, are you serious that you don't know what's been happening here? Now I want to press the pause button on our story to answer a very basic question that it raises. And that is, how can you see Jesus? I'm not talking about physically. Remember, I said earlier that after the resurrection, it required a new level of faith to see Jesus. He wants to walk and talk with you. You can't have a relationship with God if you can't see him. And why is that so important? Well, because he wants you to understand his will for your life. He gave his life for you. He gave his life so that you would have purpose and meaning in your life. He has a bigger plan and dream for your life than you have for yourself. But to know them, to really know what those plans are, you have to be able to see him. Now, here's a couple of practical ways that you can see Jesus this week. One is open yourself up to him. This is going to take a level of trust. Now, I know that some of you may have gone to church when you were younger and stopped. For whatever reason, maybe you grew up and thought, this doesn't work for me any longer, or church was boring. Well, you know why this is so important? Because Jesus wants a real and genuine relationship with you. He doesn't care about your church attendance. See, you linked your church experience with your relationship with Jesus. Big mistake. Or some of you have had a relationship with Jesus, but something sabotaged it, or someone hurt you, and you've been walking around alone ever since. You need to know that he never stopped walking with you, even though you stopped talking to him. Or maybe some of you have been walking with Jesus, but you haven't seen evidences of him lately in your life. Well, no matter where you are on your journey, here's something that can restore and refresh your life. It's a 16-day challenge. Now, don't turn me off yet. The good news is it has nothing to do with exercises or diets, but it will make a huge impact in your life. During the next 16 days, I want you to read the Gospel of Mark. That's only a chapter a day. And if you don't have a Bible or you can't understand the one that you have, I want you to download the Bible app. On your phone, you can download it there. You can download it on your computer. It has a number of different versions. And I want you to pick the Message version. I like that version because it reads how we talk today. So you don't have a bunch of these and thous. I just can't understand all that. But whatever you want, just read Mark during the next 16 days because something special is going to happen to you. You're going to see how Jesus lived. You're going to see how Jesus interacted with people. But much more than that, you're going to see him. For some of you, this will be brand new. For others, God's going to open your eyes to things that you haven't seen yet. The second way that you can see Jesus this week is to talk or pray to him. Now, praying is nothing more than talking to God. I've had people ask me, well, Rick, how should I pray? Well, the good news is there's no formula. There's no magic words. Jesus gave us a place to start in Luke 11, but Jesus is more concerned about your heart than he is your words. See, each day after you read the chapter in Mark, talk to him. Tell him what you're worried about. Tell him what you're struggling with. Tell him what your needs are. And if you're struggling with belief in him, tell him. You're not going to scare him off after all. He died for you. This is the Easter story. This is what Easter's all about. I really believe that if you'll open up to him and take this 16-day challenge and read Mark and talk to God, that Jesus is going to reveal himself to you and you will see him. Now, here's my favorite part of the story. I want you to check this out. Jesus had been walking and teaching these guys about what and why his death had to go down the way it did. And he says this: they came to the edge of the village where they were headed. He acted as if he were going on, but they pressed him. Stay and have supper with us. It's nearly evening. The day is done. So he went with them, and here is what happened. He sat down at the table with them. Taking the bread, he blessed and broke the bread and gave it to them. At that moment, open wide-eyed, they recognized him. Now, it says their eyes opened. Why did their eyes open all of a sudden? Let me ask you a question. Do you recognize that phrase that they used or seen from anywhere else in the Bible? Jesus took bread, broke it, and began to give it to them. See, at this moment, their eyes were opened, maybe because they remembered back to that time in the upper room of the house where Jesus sat at the table and he gave them some instructions to remember his sacrifice and love for them. See, Jesus wants us to see him. He wants us to walk with him. He wants us to understand the meaning of Easter. Jesus wants us to understand that it's not about gathering in big crowds. It's about what he did for us so we can know him. I want you to listen to this song, and then Pastor Gerald is going to lead us in what opened these guys' eyes on that day, that very first Easter day.
You're not sure of who you really are, when all you feel is the shape of your scars, and you've got more wounds than you can count. Open your eyes, look all around. You're not alone, this is your home. Come and remember who you are here. Do this to remember who I am. Come and remember you belong here. All belong here.
Well, that's such a beautiful song. And one of the reasons that it is so beautiful is because it's so true. That we all belong here as we prepare to celebrate communion together, where we remember the sacrifice that Jesus made for us on the cross and then celebrate what he did for us in the resurrection. So I hope you have your bread or a cracker and then some wine or some juice ready. And so we're going to celebrate communion together. On the night in which he was betrayed, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body given for you. Do this for the remembrance of me." And then after supper, he took the cup. He gave thanks, and he gave it for all to drink, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, shed for you and for all people for the forgiveness of sins. Do this for the remembrance of me." And now as we prepare to celebrate, to eat and to drink together, would you join me in praying the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. And now, if you would take your bread and hold it, I would say to you, the body of Christ given for you. And then as you dip it in your cup, I would say to you, the blood of Christ shed for you. And now as we reflect on the body given and on the blood shed, would you listen to this next song?
Do you feel the world is broken? We do. Do you feel the shadows deepen? We do. But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? Do you wish that you could see it all made new? Is all creation groaning? Is a new creation coming? Is the glory of the Lord to be the light within our midst? Is it good that we remind ourselves of Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He's David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of Does the Father truly love us? Does the Spirit move among us? And does Jesus our Messiah hold forever those he loves? Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a kingdom and priests to God, to reign with the Son. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Is he worthy of
It's been beautiful getting to worship with you today. Next week, we will continue our series, Can You See Him? And so I want you to watch this little 30-second promo of what next week's going to be about, and then I'll be right back and close our service. Well, thanks again one more time for joining us for worship on Easter here at Hope. I want to encourage you this week as you're out for your regular walk to actually turn it into a prayer walk. A walk where you are praying for the people who live in those homes that you're walking past, that they'll be protected, that their health will be kept safe, that if anyone in that home is ill, that healing will come into their lives. I also want to let you know about some things that we'll have for you that are ongoing, that are ways that we can serve you. One of those is our morning devotionals, Monday through Friday, will be continuing. You can find those on our Hope Lutheran Church Facebook page. Students, you're staying all connected on Snap. Kids, you're staying connected on YouTube. And then above all, I want you to know that you are loved, not only by us, but most importantly by God. Happy Easter, everyone.